Hello, 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 and welcome back to another episode of The 12. This is a show about the Women's Super League, aka the highest division of football in England. We are here to discuss all things WSL, both on and off the field. Each week, we'll be breaking down games, showcasing stars, and highlighting important stories surrounding the game. My name is Deep D. I'm here with my co hosts, Mark, Tom Baum, and Treb. And this week, it's about finally wrapping up this past season. If you listen to part one of our season recap, we talked through the bottom half of the table. This week, we're going to talk about the top half of the table, along with the 12 awards that we have, and some transfer rumors because silly season is underway. And yeah, just wrapping up the season as a whole. So we'll get right to it. Bottom half of the table, or sorry, top half of the table starts with in sixth place, the London City Lionesses. They finished in sixth with 8 wins, 3 draws, 11 losses on 27 points, and they had a -7 goal differential. So we'll start with positives first. Trev, why don't you start?
I think the first positive is the obvious, right? They are the newest team in the league, and they were able to finish in the top half of the table. That's something that is rare. I think it's rare enough when a team can stay up after kind of promotion, but then to put yourself in a position where you're within, pretty close shouting distance of being in the Champions League spot is impressive, although maybe not surprising given their owner is Michelle Kang and the money that they spent. I think their positive is also that they found their identity late in the season. I think at the beginning of the year we talked about how it felt like a team of stars and a team of players, but not really a cohesive unit. And I think near the middle to end of the season, they started figuring out like, okay, let's play through Freya, let's play through Goodwin. Like let's get these young players involved that are in great form and let's build through them. And I think now going into this offseason, they know who they are, what they want to do. And I think you're gonna see that with the transfers that they get into. But yeah, it was a really good first season for Michelle Kang. And that is a team, I've said it before, they are going to be coming for that Champions League spot. And it'll be sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. Okay, Mark.
Um, in terms of positives or negatives, I mean, in terms of the positives, I don't know if I have too much to add to that. I was just kind of, glancing at some of the numbers. 35 goals scored, 38 allowed. I mean, so if they want to improve, probably they'll have to look at the back line, right? But I mean, overall, like Trev said, it's a pretty solid showing for a first time in the league. They lost a few too many matches. They lost 11 matches. So obviously, if they want to compete for Champions League, they're gonna have to continue improving. And obviously, when we get into the rumors, we'll kind of cover that. But it's. I think at times it's easy to be, cynical of Michelle Kang and kind of the project and I guess the purpose behind all of this. But like it's in terms of, we always talk about this being a results based business, and like London City more or less got the results this year. So
Yeah, agreed. And I think you're both are right. Like the main thing was that they were a newly promoted side that stayed up and stayed in like we said, the top half of the table. Okay, Tom, you wrote down a negative, and I like this one.
It so Jocelyn Persure got sacked. He was the one of the first managers sacked this season, and it didn't really like the team's position didn't really um change much, but and their style of play didn't necessarily change a lot. One of the things that you did notice, which I also is a negative, is that some of the older players that were like I already said that this was the most oddly constructed sports team that you had ever seen in your life. You have a whole bunch of U23s and then you have a whole bunch of players over 30, which is just, well, what are we doing?
Mhm.
Um, so you have this, excuse me, um, you have the new manager come in and like say, "Hey, Grace Gayoro, I know that we played £1 million for you, but you are not doing it in the midfield. And hey, DVD, oh, you're hurt still. Stay over there." um, so like you could definitely tell that there was a bigger emphasis on youth going forward. And to Treb's point about like a positive about this club staying up. This was the first time in 3 seasons that the team that got relegated was not the team that had just newly got promoted. So, um, that's a huge accomplishment, especially like if you go with the trend of the league. Obviously, there were some since the league is expanding to 14 teams and there was a relegation playoff. Um, the chances for being relegated are slightly lesser, but um they still took that chance and ran with it. So kudos to them. The direction is just so weird, like how are you like, and we'll talk about players that they have acquired and signed without like having, because the UEFA's already ruled that they're not eligible for Champions League. And we all know that Michelle Kang knows how to play that money game, and I don't, it will be interesting to me to see which one of the teams that she puts in the blind trust. Like, is she going to put Leoness in the blind trust, or is she going to put London City in the blind trust? Because I feel like it will say a lot about who she values.
She values Leoness. I can tell you that right now for free. Like I think we all know that, right? Especially given how they are also moving in the transfer window. That's not a team that we normally talk about or cover, but I mean, yeah, I think it's very proven King, out of the teams that she has, she's never letting go of the full power over Leoness. But like to Tom's point, even with the new manager, I think that is also a bit of a positive, right? Because this team, like Tom mentioned, they were still in the same position when they fired their first manager, and they didn't really change. But there's also a chance that that happens, and because you're coming in, changing all these things, and you're kind of rocking the boat with the veteran players, there's a huge chance that they could have stumbled and gone lower. So I guess kudos to them for staying pat and not falling down. But yeah, it is an interesting club, and it's going to be interesting to see how they look going forward because um yeah, like they're just such a weirdly constructed roster and group, and who knows what Michelle Kang has up her sleeve on any given day.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree. And I think like looking forward, looking ahead to next year, obviously roster construction is still going to be a big point. But I think Mark, you mentioned they might have to just work on like their back line. And I mean, they managed to score more once they did feed into like Godfrey and Goodwin, and it's just now being a bit more of a cohesive unit. So I mean, we'll see with the people coming in and out. Is that going to still take some time to like create that unity partway through the season? But I think they're like obviously moving in the right direction. Also, I think they were the team that had both like given up the most penalties and also got the most penalties. I just remember there was a string of matches where it was like
It was like
one
four
one
straight
every
matches,
match.
one or
and
two a match, yeah.
somebody had a penalty kick in like either them or their opponent.
So whatever that means, like maybe that's a good thing. um, okay. In fifth place in the table was Tottenham Hotspur. They had 11 wins, 3 draws, 8 losses for a total of 36 points, and a -3 goal differential. So almost even there. Um, Tottenham, I mean, Trev and I are maybe a little bit biased, but I just like, it's funny seeing them in fifth because they never really moved below this, but I just never found or thought of them as like a fifth place team, like one step away from Champions League. So yeah, Tom, we'll start with you again. Like, what were your positives for them? Audio's gone. Second. Okay, well, while Tom gets that back, Mark, what do you say positives are for Tottenham?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that they were the best of the rest, right? Like this is really what it is. I mean, we talk about like this, like the fifth place team and that like that sort of poison chalice. But yeah, I mean, Tottenham. Uh, sorry, I thought I heard my door knocking. Yeah, Tottenham. I mean, they were a lot better than last year, right? Like, I think that's probably the biggest positive for them. You know, they were one step from getting relegated a year before, and obviously they improved a lot. And like theoretically, they put themselves in a position like they had as many wins as Man United, right? Which I actually did not know until looking at the table just now, right? That's not something I would have thought. But yeah, I think aside from obviously the results being better, I think like last year when they were so bad, I thought their midfield in particular was pretty poor, and I think that was probably their most improved position group. Um, you know, like looking at some of their top performers like Holt, Hamano came in halfway through. Um, Yeah, you know, like and also Tottenham spent more money than they have in the past, right? Which is like not a super high bar, but it's good to see um you know some of these other clubs upping their investment in the women's team. So um I mean like I think yeah, the biggest positive is just the improvement from the previous season for me.
Yeah, fair enough. Tom?
I think they found a coach. Like I think they found a coach, and the coach has a very um distinct style. It's super aggressive. And y- yes, they do score a lot of goals. Yes, they did concede a lot of goals, but you can also put that up to how young their center back pairing is. I mean, Claire Hunt and Toka Koga, like I think they have a combined age of less than 43 between them. So uh which is how old I am. But uh and you really noticed them when the matches came back for after the international break, but while Asia Cup was still going on, when they were playing each other in or excuse me, Japan versus Australia, like they Spurs played City and they got waxed at the Joy. Like, and I think I remember the
Oh no, we lost him again. um okay.
the announcing team said something to the effect of they training cones could defend better than their substitute backline. So like
Oh
you could
no.
tell
Oh no.
those center backs were really missed. Um yeah, and I think and we'll get into their major signing later in the show, but and another thing to remember is that uh Jessica Nas did her knee so early in the season that that's going to be that's going to be another one of those signings coming forward. You know,
Yeah.
like they'll have that.
It'll be
Okay,
like a new
Trev.
signing. Yeah, just Nas will be like a new signing. Yeah, I mean, just kind of like echoing what everyone said. I think for me, in a lot of ways, Tottenham was like London City in terms of like their roster, but kind of like for all the wrong reasons, where it's like you didn't really know who they were. You didn't get a sense of like what they were trying to do. They were never really in the mix for any major signings, but I think they have a coach now. They're starting to build that identity. I think their outlook for the future looks a lot better, but also like I feel like I've been here before. I feel like at the end of the last few seasons, I've looked at Tottenham and been like, they're right on the doorstep of taking that next step the way that United did the last 2 years. And we just haven't seen it from Tottenham. And it's hard to get fully sold on that. But at the same time, like they finished fifth, like Deeply said, like I'm surprised to look at the table and see them in fifth because they didn't really like at the beginning of the year they were losing close matches. They didn't really move the needle either way throughout the season. I don't really remember them having a long stretch where they were like ripping off wins, but they must have had a stretch of good results because they finished in fifth. So I just, you know, biases aside, I just think that right now they're in where they've been the last few years, which is promising and in a position to really catapult themselves to that next level. But we will see if they can do it. And I get it; it's hard, especially when, as we've seen with some of the transfer moves so far, this is a league that really there's only 3 teams in the mix for, it feels like 90% of women's soccer talent, right? Like it's City, Chelsea, and Arsenal, and it feels like it's a real battle for other clubs to get it done. But I think that Tottenham, as much as I like shitting on them, they are still a club with a name, and they are a club that can bring in some players. And we'll talk about the players that they have brought in because they have had a decent window so far. And if they can continue that, I think we'll finally be talking about them next year as the team challenging United to maybe challenge one of those top 3 spots.
I think that Tot- Tottenham will be the biggest beneficiary of the Subway Cup rules changing, because I think that
Because they can win
they have
something probably. Yeah.
yeah, and win something. They have to go into next season thinking that, like, our biggest competition for this trophy is probably going to be, in no particular order, Brighton, Man United, and London
London
City.
City. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, they're gonna feel like this is a trophy, and I do. This is good that it's something that is an incentive for those mid-table teams, where it's no longer just like, oh, did you make it to Champions League? No, okay. Are you gonna get relegated? No, okay. Well then, like, what are we really playing for? There's incentive there for being um in that 4, 5, 6 range.
I agree. I think basically echoing what all of you said, they had a really good January transfer window as well. So what Mark said about investing and getting the right players, getting the right coach is what is important. I This is kind of a both a positive and a negative. Like a negative that the men's side did so poorly but a positive that they managed to stay up because we've seen that once men's sides get relegated, the women's sides tend to take the fall. Um, Tottenham is such a big club that hopefully that wouldn't have happened if that was the case, and they do put so much money into it. But the fact that the men have now managed to stay up, I think, will actually help the women in terms of getting more money put into them as well. Um, the negatives, I like. I think it was just inconsistency because, like we said, and also giving up a lot of goals. And that in the matches that they did lose, they gave up several, and it was like losing like 5-2, 4-1, stuff like that. It wasn't like very super close matches. So I think there's something there where it's like, yeah, they can win the close matches against most of the table, but against like the top teams, they're still not quite up to par. So that'll just take getting the right players and I guess being more clinical and having a stronger backline. I think with the 2 young CBs though, they will get there. By like I mean they were close this year, so I think the next year will be a good fight for like that 4th spot.
I feel like the low point for them was that United match where they were up, and then they ended up, like, they were up at home and it ended up, like, being a 3-3 draw. They, like, allowed 3 goals in the final, like, 7 minutes in stoppage time or something
Mm.
crazy like that. Um, that was really kind of the low point. It was like, these are the types of teams and these are the types of matches that you need to win in order to put silverware of some description, whether that, be a chance at Europa League, whether that be an FA Cup, whether that be a Subway Cup, in your trophy cabinet. And when you're at home, you got to close that match out. And I think that to me, that was definitely the low point.
Yeah, that's a good point. And then it's like, how do you bounce back from that? Okay, cool. Now into the top 4. Man United was they came in 4th. 11 wins again, like Tottenham, but 7 draws and only 4 losses on the season, totaling 40 points. And they had a plus 16 goal differential. So I think up until now, no one had a positive goal difference, and now these top 4 teams have, which is like kind of obvious because they're the top 4, but I think it was maybe Brighton that had an even one, even though they were lower in the table. But now you can see like the discrepancy between best of the rest and the top 4, and it's really in like scoring and keeping like clean sheets and stuff. I'll just say the 4 losses. I was just taking a look back. 2 of them were to Manchester City, 1 to Chelsea on the final day, and the other one Aston Villa, which I would have. I mean, I remembered Arsenal didn't get a result against them, but I thought Chelsea beat them twice, and I forgot. Okay, we'll start with Mark. Positives for United.
I think definitely a Champions League run. Making it to the knockouts. And I mean, even just finishing as high in the league phase as they did. I mean, they were kind of in play for one of those top 4 seeds, basically, at one point. So, I mean, and I think they beat Juventus along the way. I think there's somebody else I'm forgetting that they beat, but they made it all the way to, what was it, the semifinals or the
Quarterfinals.
quarters where they lost to Bayern.
Quarters.
Okay, yeah. And so I think in many of our eyes they overachieved, right? Like I don't know if any of us, I don't want to say any of us, but I don't know if we really believed they would make it that far or do as well. So yeah, that's probably. I'm trying to think of any other positives before we, get into slating them. But, but no, yeah. I mean, like Man U were pretty competitive for, I would say, what, 3/4 of the season, 2/3 of the season, right? They were in the mix for a Champions League spot for the upcoming season and all that, and until they kind of just fell away. So, yeah, that and finishing, securing the top 4 spot. We often talk about like that glass ceiling between 5th and 4th, and I think even though they only finished 4 points ahead of Tottenham, like you were saying, DT, like the goal difference is pretty stark. Mm-hmm. So I think there's still like quite a bit of difference between Tottenham and Man United as of right now.
Agreed. Treb?
Yeah, I'm super impressed with the season they had. I mean, I was one of them. If I felt like for so much of the season, I was waiting for that other shoe to drop. They had the hot start. They looked really good. And, the whole season I was just like, okay, well, when we get to the thick of Champions League, like this is the real test, because like City have had to experience, like Arsenal and Chelsea experience seemingly every year. It is so hard getting into those knockout stages and trying to maintain that top part of the WSL, because you're going up against teams like Barcelona, Real Madrid, Leoness, and then you have to also manage, that tiredness and the injuries and manage the domestic league. So I was just really impressed with how they were able to manage all of that this year.
Yeah, I'll go to negatives now, and Tom, you can jump into.
We get to slander?
We get to slander now. But before I give the floor to Tom, I think, yeah, it was just kind of their collapse towards the end of the season. I don't know if a collapse is even fair, but I think based on what they did in the first like 3 quarters, like you said, that's when, we kept thinking like, when is the shoe going to drop? When is the shoe going to drop? When are they going to fail? And it never really came until pretty far into it. And I'm just looking at their results again. The FA Cup 5th round against Chelsea, when Chelsea won in extra time, kind of was the start of a string of poor results. And after that, that was end of February. From then until the end of the season, they had only 1 win. They had several draws and then a bunch of losses, but the only win was against Everton. But then they like drew Brighton, drew Tottenham, lost to City, lost to Chelsea. They drew West Ham. And so it was like a bunch of results where they probably could have done a bit better. And I think that is when all of it kind of culminated, the whole long season, and how they we were talking about, they don't have a huge bench. They were healthy for the most part, but it started thinning out towards the end, and that's when it came to bite them.
I also feel like it also coincided with PTJ. Sorry, real quick. Like I also feel like it coincided with PTJ's slip in form. Like I said that at the beginning of the year, where it's like if she starts playing worse, or if she hits a poor run of form, then they're really going to struggle because she was winning them games as a goalkeeper. Like she was shutting teams out. She was preventing a lot of, like, I know when they played Arsenal, like there were a couple of shots where we were point blank range and she was stopping those. Right. And so like when her form started to slip, you're right. Like near the end of the season, you could see they were giving up more goals. They were struggling to keep those clean sheets. They were then struggling to score. And so it just kind of all unraveled for them near the end.
And if I remember correctly, that run that Deep D's referencing also coincides with when Jess Park picked up her initial injury. And you like, yes, I will willingly admit that they got City on that trade. Like, they got cash and the player for Grace Clinton. And Jess Park was everything to them until February. And then you realize how important she was in, um, especially without Ella Toon being healthy for most of the season. You realize how important she was in making the play, like setting up the attack for United. And like Mallard had a great season, but she's not the type of player that that's going to create a lot of her own. Like she needs to be fed the ball. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but if you don't have the players that are actually going to like feed her the ball, then it's going to like limit her effectiveness, I guess. And you definitely saw that as the season ran on. And I think that like you heard Mark Skinner out here dry begging, like, please invest, please, just like shamelessly begging, like, hey, like we are taking on a lot trying to do, qualify for Champions League for next season, as well as stay in the Champions League this season. And I feel like I said it at the beginning of the season, like I was just waiting. Like their squad simply was not deep enough to let them do that run. Especially like if you look at the top six leagues in Europe, um, this is by far the most competitive one. Like to get one of those like I think Premier League in France, like they get 4 auto spots. Like no one even goes to the thing, and like I think Nantes got the 4th spot or something like that. Obviously we like I don't think Atleti actually got the 3rd spot in Liga FA, and Italy did not have a great showing. And Germany we know is a 2-team race pretty much, and that like Bayern pretty much ended that very quickly. So this is the most competitive league, and they're trying to fight on as many fronts as they were. Like they just were never going to be able to get that.
For like looking to next season, what would be a successful season and what would be kind of a failed season at this point? Because now they know the taste of Champions League, even though they won't be in it next year. Is just getting that 4th spot good enough, or is top 3 like a success? Like what do you guys think should be their goal, I guess, for the next year?
That's a good question. Like we should ask Man United what they think of that question because that's what it comes down to. And I mean, during that bad run, and Deeply, until you mentioned it, I really didn't realize how bad they were towards the end. Like one win in the final like 3 months, it seemed like really bad. And during that run, The Athletic did a piece on Man United and the investment on the women's team. Apparently, all these clubs have like the internal structures and the women's team, the people who represent the women's team and so forth. The Man United women's team officials met with the hierarchy of the club and basically was like, hey, can we go get outside investment like Chelsea are doing? Like even clubs in the championship, like I think it was Sunderland most recently, are doing. And they were basically told no. So like they are not allowed to seek outside investment, but there's no real indication that the club itself are going to invest in the women's team more. And so it's just like what are we supposed to do? Like I was just looking up news on Mark Skinner because I was just wanted to make sure we didn't miss anything. I mean, he's still there, but there are a lot of headlines like, "Oh, his future in question." And okay, let's say you move on him from Mark Skinner. Like, who are you convincing to take on this project when
I,
we're not even really clear what the project is? You know,
I know one very good coach who's recently looking for a job. I know that
right?
much.
Right. But then, you think about that coach and where he's been before. Like, would he want to take on? Would he want to deal with these people basically? Because I
Gotta
don't
be
know.
better
That's
than
what
where
it
he was
feels
just
like.
at.
I don't know. That sounds
Hey,
like that sounds like another power struggle that he would walk
Yeah,
into.
exactly.
And he
Yeah,
probably
yeah, yeah. Maybe not. Maybe
needs
not.
full alignment.
um, but yeah, like it. Because like okay, we were like just talking about like the how players really only sign with City, Arsenal, Chelsea, right? And like we've talked about this before, it's like the pyramid, right? And so it's like even if you're a Man United player, like if you ball for Man United, you could use that as a spring step to one of those clubs. But Man United should be one of those clubs. So, I know it's tough. I know like signing a couple players isn't gonna like necessarily get them into the top three or get them the title, but I think they could definitely show more ambition that they have to this point.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's not like as much as the players do, as much as the coaches do, it's all in despite their ownership and not because of them. And I don't really know what will change that. If they did go to them and they just refuse to agree to invest more, like what more can you do then? I like maybe it's on the fans to like petition them to like Ratcliffe to sell the team then. And I don't know, have like external investors to get more because otherwise nothing's going to change. Like they're always going to be right at that cusp, but not have enough to move forward. And other teams are going to catch up. Like we see, like Tottenham might catch up. London City could easily catch up. And so, yeah, it's kind of. I feel like next season might be one of those now or never moments where they can see like if they don't even qualify for Champions League or if they're not even contending for like top three then something needs to be done. Like there needs to be some sort of pushback on that.
I would say that in order for Skinner to keep, like at minimum, keep his job, um, they need to be in either third or fourth place by the time they are playing in and winning the Subway Cup final. Like,
Mm.
because if, like, at that point, you have a clear delineation of, like, are we going to get a trophy? Yes, no. Are we, like, do we have a chance to make Champions League? Yes, no. And if they don't have that shot, like, it would not necessarily shock me if United just said, you know what, Mark Skinner, thank you for your time and services, but you are no longer needed. Like, but to Mark's point, like, if the club does not have the level of ambition to truly change, then the next managers will just walking into the same situation.
Yeah, exactly. And I think actually you're right. I think Subway Cup and FA Cup will be good indications. Subway Cup definitely they should win it, and I feel like if they don't, that could be an issue. Okay, we'll move on to our teams, the top three, starting with Chelsea in third place. They had 15 wins, 4 draws, and 3 losses on the season at 49 points, a plus 24 goal differential. They scored 44 goals. Um, yeah, well, okay, Tom and Trev, we'll talk first, and then we'll give Mark the floor. But just real quick, positives and negatives for them before.
I think for me, positives would be obviously their transfer business. They brought in some really good superstars. I mean, Chelsea are going to do what Chelsea do. It's very obvious. I've said it before. They are a club desperate for Champions League success, so they will load up every chance they get. Um, I mean, it's hard to think of a positive for Chelsea just based on who they are, right? I think obviously 99% of the teams in the league, that's a great season that they had, right? They finished in the top. They had a decent run in the Champions League. They're a
Got
team
a
that are,
trophy.
yeah, they have a trophy, right? But I think just for the standards that they set for themselves, like I said, Champions League is their standard. They got knocked out uh, by us, by Arsenal, right? So they lose to their rivals in that regard. They struggled against us during the domestic season. They find themselves having to fight for that Champions League spot. Like, it was not easy at all. They have to watch, Man City win the league. So it was a very rough time for Chelsea, and I'm sure Mark can attest to that. But just it, yeah, like I said, it's a positive season because it was a good season for anybody. But for Chelsea FC, I think they look at this season and they're like, this sucked. like this very much sucked, and we need to improve for next year. And it'll be interesting to see how they do that.
I think to me one of the negatives that might like fly under the radar that Mark's going to give us a rundown on, um, is just the injury luck. Like you think about like all of the players that like you know were on their roster at some point that still dealing with some sort of injury. Like even though they transferred Katerina Macario away, like she was still injured for a good section of the season. Um, you have players like Khadijah Buchanan going down, Millie Bright going down, Naomi Gurma still not fit. All like that injury luck just really, I I think it kind of derailed the season because it almost seemed like in some ways you could kind of justify. Well, no, I don't think you can really justify any of the things that Sonya did. Um, you could see why one could make an argument that um, a lot of the season was like, oh, once I get these players back, we'll be good. Like, we'll be okay. Like, yes, the system sucks, but that's because the pieces that I need to make the system work aren't there, aren't available. So I'm not getting as much out of them as I need. So you could make that argument. I don't think that Mark is going to.
Yeah. All right. So in terms of positives, I think you guys touched on it. Like trophy top three, right? The most important thing, other than winning the actual title, like finishing in Champions League spots, most important thing. I think also some of the the new players, particularly Alyssa Thompson, Ellie Carpenter, they had pretty. I think Alyssa Thompson had a good season. Ellie Carpenter had a pretty solid season. I think she started off better, and towards the end was kind of like, eh. But I still think there's enough there. Like going forward, I feel pretty good about her. Um, yeah, I think that's pretty much the positives for me. I mean, in terms of the negatives, where do we begin, right? What's funny is like we've kind of talked about this before, and obviously this will change with two new teams and four more matches being added to the schedule. But it's like you can be in the title race for a certain amount of time, and then one or two results go against you, and it's done. And Chelsea lost three matches, and two of those losses were against City and Arsenal back to back. And really, like that, there was that loss to Everton, which was just diabolical. That is one of the angriest that I have ever been watching Chelsea women. I could not believe what I was watching. And it was just like, oh, this is how our season's gonna go, like this is what we're doing. Okay. Um yeah, I think the back line definitely was disappointing. And a lot of that had to do with injuries. Like Naomi Gurma coming in and out of the side. That's probably not great for her form, right? And I think we saw a reflection. I think we did see that play out. Natalie Bjorn, who was so good last season, we didn't see as much of her this season. And she was one where she attempted a comeback and immediately had to come out of the game. We've seen that with Gurma in the past as well. That when I see those type of situations, then I wonder about the medical team and the processes there and all that. But then also like I think the attack was kind of a letdown. Just looking at these numbers, right? They scored 9 less goals than Arsenal, and they scored almost 20 less goals than City in the league. And that's how you drop results, you know? And I think in certain matches where they actually looked okay, um, but weren't able to score, and then those had the results go against them as a result, like um but yeah, I mean, like, just in terms of there's just so many negatives, like like Bon Pastor, for example. I don't know. Like, this is another, like, you'll hear us say this a lot, but I think for a lot of these clubs, it's just a matter of what is the plan here. What are we trying to do? And I think that's really the case for Chelsea. Obviously, like, they kind of underwent a transition. Paul Green, who was Emma Hayes' right hand man for the longest time, left the club, and I think that really, like, kind of completed the Emma Hayes era, where it's like there's no longer anybody, like, obviously she's not there, and there's no longer anybody else there associated with her to influence proceedings. But it also felt like Paul Green was maybe losing influence anyway. I mean, like, the transfer window last year, we've talked about it at length, but I thought that by Chelsea standard, it was a poor window, just in the sense of, like, even the Alyssa Thompson signing came at the very end, and there was just not a lot of activity in the middle. I also think the decision not to sign a midfielder proved to be an incorrect one,
We
and
got Lexi Potter at the house. We don't need Lily
we have
Johannes. We got Lexi
Oh,
Potter
but
at the house.
not just not signing a midfielder. You were literally given Lily Johannes, and you said, "No,
yeah,
I'm good."
because we have Lexi Potter, who didn't play for half the season. Like, sure, Sonia, sure.
But
And then on
then
top of that,
you sell away Oriane Jean Francois.
yes,
That's almost
exactly.
unforgivable.
Yeah. And, like, they got a sizable fee for her, but still, in the middle of the season, and Hamano, who I think could have done a job in certain matches. So yeah, I mean, I think it's obvious that Chelsea have work to do. They've already started doing that. I think the fact that they're making early signings is potentially a sign that at least the front office is working in cohesion. But I mean, there's definitely more signings that need to be done for me to feel comfortable with where Chelsea's squad at is going into the season. Because I think, alluding to what Trev was saying earlier, like, Chelsea's goals are the title and Champions League, right? And winning Champions League.
Mhm.
So, like, anything else has to be treated like a failure. And I hope that the this ownership group recognizes that, and not just say, well, we've had X amount of success, like, we can kind of coast on that now. Like the women are moving into Stamford Bridge full time now, and for their league matches anyway. Um, and I'm gonna be honest, like, I'm not expecting them to really come close to a sellout, at least not at the beginning. So like, it's a big moment, I think, for Chelsea women, and just seeing where the club goes from here, because it's hard to, like, when you've been at the top, like, obviously, like, Chelsea haven't accomplished everything they want to, but I think sometimes maintaining a top spot is harder than chasing. And so I am curious if Sonia and the front office and so on, like, have the savvy to really make the moves that need to be made to get this team back to the top.
I do have two questions. Like, well, they're two, like, they're the same question, but kind of like two part. But, like, do you think, because, like, we've talked about Sonia and kind of her status the entire season, but do you think, one, winning that trophy saved her job, like, legitimately saved her job? And two, just as a Chelsea fan, like we talked about Mark Skinner being on the hot seat, do you feel like Sonia is coming into the season on the hot? Like, I definitely feel like ownership probably won't feel this way, but I just, in terms of fan perception and just how Chelsea fans are, do you think, like, coming into this next season, Sonia's in a position where it's like, look, there is not going to be a Subway Cup to fight for. Like, even if you win FA Cup, we expect to be competing and at least reaching the finals of the Champions League.
Yeah, I think securing top 3 probably secured her job status in the end. I'm not sure how much winning Subway Cup helped or hurt her status in that regard. Because I kind of feel like there was an acknowledgement of, there was a few things that went wrong this season. So I don't know if Maupassant was ever going to lose her job because of this, unless, like I mentioned before. But I could see her seat being warm going into the season. And it's that kind of thing where, like we talked about with other clubs, seeing where they are halfway through. Like, I think if it looks like top 3 is even in danger halfway through the season, I think she could lose her job in that scenario. But yeah, I think that's a good question, because I'm curious about the ambition of the front office, whether they see it as like an urgent thing that Chelsea, return to the top.
Is this the first time Chelsea will have to go through Champions League qualifying? I'm guessing because
I think
they won
so.
the league before, right? So
Yeah.
do you foresee any problems with that? Number one, and then my second question, I guess, is like, there's so much turnover happening this year, and it's like that's already happened through through the middle of the season, and also once we get to talk about transfers and stuff, you'll see how much in that. Do you think that'll be a net positive, a net negative, or just like you don't know yet because yeah, like there's so much happening.
I'll answer that last question first. I think it'll be a positive. Because looking at some of the players who are walking now, like obviously Millie Bright. I think Myra has already been announced by Real Madrid. There's Neve Charles,
Wait,
who's
they got
all.
they got Bernstein and Myra?
I think so.
Mhm.
I think Myra
Oh
was announced.
wow. Oh wow. Ooh, pairing that
I
with
don't.
Linda.
Yeah.
They are really going in full in on just countering Barcelona, full tilt.
Yep. I don't know if Myra was announced, but that's been the
Rumored.
the strongest
Yeah, not
rumor for her.
officially announced yet, but that's where all
Okay.
signs point to. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. What are the women's game, right? Like, and how those transfers play out. Like, we know Neve Charles is a Man City player, even though it hasn't been announced yet. So yeah, but I mean, like the players that have left, they were kind of either on the fringes or hurt or washed in the case of Millie. And so I think a clean slate in a lot of ways is a good thing. But I think that's why I keep emphasizing the transfer activity, right? Like, I think that Chelsea really kind of need a big window. Like, obviously, Sam Kerr, like, can't forget about her. And like, she'll be the most difficult to replace. But I will also say, like, we're not necessarily replacing the Sam Kerr of 2 years ago, right? Like, and we know that she was dealing with coming back from the ACL the past couple seasons and all that, but I think there's also a real question about. I mean, I think we've probably seen the best of Sam Kerr, right? Like, obviously, best of luck to her in New York, but but they have to go get a striker. Like, I think that was. Going back to what I was saying before, like it's funny. Like, you look at the table I think from like the 6th position, and it basically goes up in ascending order in terms of goals scored. So Chelsea got to add goals to their attack. I think that also can have an effect on how many goals they allow, because they did allow more goals than Arsenal and City, but I kind of feel like that's a function of when you're not scoring, not putting teams on the back foot. I think you then allow pressure, and so I think you saw that in games like the Everton match, where they couldn't score, the Everton score on one counter. So yeah, I mean, I think it's, like I said, not to keep repeating myself, but the signings, I think, are the most important thing for me at this point.
Is there a striker name though that's out there that like you feel like that because I the only obvious one to me is gonna be Ada Hegerberg, and she might be a little bit older than
There,
you would
there is.
want.
I mean, and Yomi's out of contract right now in Germany, but
But she plays more on the wing though, right?
yeah, but she can get up the middle, because I think for Germany sometimes she'll play, like she'll come in when Pop was still playing, like she was coming up the middle every now and then. But yeah, you're right. Like the striker market feels bare right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
like it almost it almost would make sense for them to give Selma another option and just be like, okay, you know what? We're just going to play Alyssa Thompson and Selma, and then we're just going to make Lauren James our false nine, like, and go ham.
I mean, honestly, Lauren James was Chelsea's best player this season, right? So, I mean, she's going to heavily feature anyway. That is actually an interesting idea. But I think to answer your original question, in terms of obvious names, I don't know if there's one out there. I remember, I'm forgetting the name now, but Chelsea was heavily linked with a striker who's playing in Sweden right now.
Oh, that young player, huh?
Yeah, they
Yeah.
signed her. They signed her, didn't they?
Did they? I thought it was just rumor.
Schroeder?
Was it
I don't.
Schroeder?
I think they did sign from Hecken. Felicia
Oh,
Schroeder.
did
I
they
think they
actually?
did sign her.
Oh, I completely missed that then. Um,
Yeah, that deal is officially announced. Chelsea have signed Swedish forward Felicia Schroeder for
oh,
1.4 million euros.
I did not know that was officially announced. So that women's game, love it.
So you do have a
but
young,
Yeah.
promising striker on the team right now.
right. So yeah, I think, but it's gonna have to be something like that, right? Like I think in terms of like squad revolution, I think they're gonna have to go after like some young, high level talents. You know, it's just a shame because they really, really could have used Johannes, but it's neither here nor there.
I think on the bright side, Chelsea's not one of those teams that will ever really lose their appeal. You're still going to attract stars, even though you are third in the table and whatever. So I don't think that's ever going to be a real issue.
Because location is still important. Like they still play in London, and
Yeah.
like that's still a big deal.
Yeah, and it's still a massive club. So, okay, I'm going to move us on. We don't have a ton of time to get through everything, but we'll talk about Arsenal next. Second in the table, 15 wins, just like Chelsea, but 6 draws, only 1 loss to City. We ended with 51 points and a plus 39 goal differential. I just want to point out, like when we talk about City too, we had 1 loss, City had 3, but even if we did like win that, we still wouldn't have won the league based on points. And so I think that's just an indication of how like in this league, even draws are kind of considered losses to these teams, because even if you didn't lose a single match, if you didn't win enough, you still might not get that title. So that's how close it is, but that's how important it is to actually win out and not just get 1 point here and there. Okay, so Tom, I'll start with you. Positives, negatives for this Arsenal squad.
I think to me it was kind of this season was a good display of Arsenal's depth, and the amount of players that they went after. I think they had the best new player signing in getting Olivia Smith. I think that helped their team tremendously. Um, um, you can see why Arsenal fans are disappointed that Mariana Caldente didn't get a bigger shout for Ballon d'Or. Like, I think that she definitely had the season for them to definitely do that. Making it as far into the Champions League because you all went to the semifinals, and like having that, like basically going to France, having Lyon on the ropes, like that's you can't really ask for too much better than that. I think the we talked about this before. I think when the season started, like how it was going to be a mini table of like the 4 teams that uh, that finished at the top, and to know that like of those 4 teams, Arsenal like got the most points out of the 12 possible. Like they only dropped the 3 to City, and then like they drew the first match to Chelsea in the league. Um, drew to United,
I
but
think we
you drew
drew
to
to
United
United twice.
once. Okay, that and I think that honestly to me is probably where the season hinged, like for Arsenal, because I think if you get a result out of one of those, it it definitely makes the last day, a little bit more nervy for City for sure. Um, but it to me, like them having like the best like round of results against the top four, like that to me is probably like the big.
Mark?
I mean, honestly, like only losing one match is pretty impressive, right? Like, it almost feels a little unlucky. I mean, like definitely, you can't draw too many matches. And I think that's a function of the modern game as well, because we see that a lot in on the men's side where teams that like are very solid defensively and are able to get the results, but that when you don't score enough, you kind of miss out on certain results as well. And I think that's probably what Arsenal would be looking at. But I don't know. It's hard to fault Arsenal's season too much, I guess. Um, overall, at least from my perspective, right? Like obviously, it the the line is so thin between like being there and actually getting over the top in terms of winning titles and in even in Champions League, right? Like obviously they were eventually eliminated by Lyon, but it was close, right? And so they almost like got back to the Champions League final as well. So I don't know. It's I think overall it was a pretty good season for Arsenal, other than like Arsenal didn't win the trophy, right? Like because so other than that, I mean, that was really the biggest negative. But I would say overall Arsenal had a pretty good season.
Okay, Chubb, I'll open up to you.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it before, the small margins. I think first of all, much like we talked about with Chelsea's injuries, Arsenal started the season kind of unlucky with, having to come fresh off of Euros. Didn't have Leah Williamson for the first 3 quarters of the season, it felt like. And even though we saw Katie Reed do really well in replacing her, she eventually went down after the first few matches with an ACL injury. Um, we had little knocks and bruises here and there. Really, where the season, like in terms of the title race, where it ended for me was you look at the start of the season, first 2 matches we win, score 9 goals, only concede 2. It looks like we're flying. And then we draw to United, that scoreless draw. And that kicked off a stretch where we drew to United 0-0. We drew to Aston Villa in that last second goal 1-1. And then we lost to City 3-2. And then we lost that first match to Lyon in the group stage of the Champions League. And that 3-match stretch is the title. Because even if you draw to Chelsea or to City and you win those other 2 matches, that is 6 points, right? So like the fact that they had those 2 draws on top of that loss to City, that is the difference in the title right now. And so that's really unfortunate, but they finished strong. I feel really, it's hard to say you feel good when you don't win a trophy, but I think that's just the nature of what the priorities are for a team like Arsenal, right? Like I'm not ever going to be too mad if we don't prioritize a Subway Cup and we lose that. That is what it is. And when the FA Cup hit, we were in a stretch where we're trying to keep players healthy for our Champions League run, and for a team like Arsenal and Chelsea and City, like that's always going to be more important is that Champions League run. So we went for it. We lost to Lyon. I mean, we smacked them last year. They smacked us this year. Like that's, roundabouts and stuff like that. It all balances out. So it was a tough way to end. I definitely feel like, but I think as a whole, I'm glad we're second. Like we finished second. We pushed City to the end. Like there was a stretch near those last few games where it was like, okay, like they could do it. But again, we talk about the draws, like that last draw to what was it, Brighton? Like that was the one that kind of took, that sealed the deal for City and put them in a position where they knew that they were going to win the title. But yeah, it's just health. I think, again, we'll talk about transfers soon, but Arsenal right now are in a spot where I don't want to say the rebuild, but the refresh is happening. And I think now with the addition of Jody Taylor that we talked about in the middle of the season coming in as the new kind of like sporting director, overtaking Claire, hopefully working with Renee. And now you're going to see Renee after having had, because again, this was Renee's first full season with the club. And I think some people maybe forget that She came in, like she won the Champions League in her first half season. They were fighting to the very end for the title this year. They made it to the semifinals of the Champions League again, without really having added much to a roster that was, losing matches under Jonas. So I think you're going to see the evolution of that now. We've had several players depart. We're supposedly going to have a few players arrive, and I'm excited for where we're going to go in the future. I think I've said it before where we are still probably 2 years ahead of schedule post Jonas in
Right.
terms of where I want to see us. And for me, I probably won't begin expectations for Renee until after this coming season. So like this coming season, we're still riding out, we're still vibing out, finish top 3. That's really the priority. Whatever else happens is gravy. But after this coming season, then I'll start being like, okay, Renee, we need to start winning the league at least, right? Like, because I think much like Mark talked about with Chelsea, like for Arsenal, as an Arsenal fan, we need to return to that mountaintop. We've been just as successful before Chelsea's run. We were the team that ripped off 7 championships in a row unbeaten. You know what I mean? Not just 7 titles, 7 unbeaten seasons. So that's pure invincibles right there. So like we need to return to that. And I think we can. It's time to splash that money. I'm excited with who we're linked to and who we're going to get in. And yeah, overall it was a good season. It was, disappointing to a degree, but I'm not going to be angry about it. I'm not going to, want anyone fired or anything like that. It is what it is. It went how it went, and we push on next year.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Champions League win last year did
Yeah.
kind of raise the expectations almost to a degree that is not fair to Renee and the team. And I mean, I was kind of part of that. And then, like you said, when we started off really strong, those first couple matches, I think then we like got kicked down to reality after those two. But looking at like even the numbers, only one loss, like allowed the least number of goals in the league. And that is with like obviously Van Domselaar was healthy for a
Yeah.
little bit, but then got injured.
Daphne
And then
wasn't
we brought
healthy.
in,
Leah wasn't
yeah,
healthy. Like we had a lot of injuries to a defense. To be able to keep the lowest goals conceded is huge.
yeah. So I think there are a ton of positives, and obviously, like all the people we brought in as well, like Olivia Smith, Taylor Hines, Smila Holmberg, they all have been integrated super well and have done really well. And so I think that's just like a testament to Renee and the team all working together. I think looking again at the numbers and saying all of this, like the only negative I would say is that there was a string of matches where it felt like the team had reverted back to like Jonas tactics in terms of we're just going to cross it in and try to find someone, but no one's there. And the finishing was not there. And you can see that in like the number of goals scored and compared that to City, where we're about 9 goals less. And so, a few of those goals would change a draw to a win. And that's where I'd like the difference lies. And so we're so close. And I think you're right. Like next season, yeah, priority maybe is again top 2. Like obviously we'll try to contend for the title. But we're still rebuilding. And then after next season is where, okay, we got to win something. And I think now with like Subway Cup out of the way for us next year, we can focus a little bit more on like FA Cup. Like I'm hoping to win at least one trophy next season. Um, but yeah, otherwise, like overall, like yeah, I think way more positives than anything, and the future is looking really exciting for us.
Yeah.
Okay, City winners, title holders, 18 wins, 1 draw, and 3 losses. They won on 55 points with a plus 43 goal difference. Okay, Mark and Treb will talk first, and then Tom can gloat. Okay, Mark, positives, negatives, if there were any negatives.
Okay, I just want to say I was right on City. I was just a year early, right?
Never wrong,
Yeah,
just early.
exactly. I think the attack has to be the biggest positive for City for me, right? Obviously, like Bunny, who to me is the player of the year, but then also like, why am I blanking on her name now? I'm gonna feel so bad about this. The big Dutch woman. Miedema.
Yeah, I was confused. I was like, wait, are you talking about Viv Miedema? Like the Viv Miedema? Yeah.
WSL all-time goal scoring leader.
Her. Yeah. She had a really good season for City, especially, and we know that she's been playing more midfield for them, so seeing her thrive in that role was good. Ficino had a good year. We saw we saw Fowler come back to decent effect. Hemp was good. Kasparai was good. Just a lot of, like, the attack was just so fluid and overwhelming, really, at times. And, like, begrudgingly, like, City were actually fun to watch at times, like when they were putting 5 past Chelsea. That's man, I have never seen Chelsea take it to the woodshed like that. Like, that was crazy. That
Carolyn took that match personal.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. Was it Carol? No. It was Bunny who stiff-armed Naomi, who said, "Get off me."
Dog, she hit her with that Derrick Henry, and I was like, "Oh God,
get off me." But yeah, and I mean, I don't have any negatives. For me, City's attack was just amazing.
I think for me, 2 things. We talked about United and, like, how they did in the Champions League. The biggest reason they were in the Champions League and City wasn't was because last year Bunny Shaw spent half the season out. So the biggest positive for City this year was health, because they had Bunny Shaw start to finish. And we saw what happens when you have Bunny Shaw in the form that she was in a contract year, start to finish. She balled the fuck out. So that was the biggest positive, I think, for City. On top of the fact that you win the title, and during your celebration, you get to announce that Bunny is staying. So, like, that is it. I think the season for City went as perfect as it could, all things considered. The only negative is a net positive, which was, the negative is that they didn't play in the Champions League. But I said it before, them not having Champions League this year really helped them win that title. And that's not to take anything away from them. But again, they were the healthiest in the league. They didn't have the matches to worry about, the stress of all that. They were able to just kind of keep that same schedule, knowing they were playing the domestic football, knowing that they were going to have, the FA Cup, the Subway Cup here and there. But for the most part, it was all WSL play. And that really helped them a lot. And they earned this title. Like, big time. I think as an Arsenal fan, coming into the year, you're just like, okay, let's just not have Chelsea win it, right? Like, even if it can't be us, let it just be someone else once, just to kind of show that Chelsea can be stopped. And so City did us that favor. It was a great season from them. Yeah, like Mark said, even when it was against your own team, it was really impressive to watch just how good they were. Like, they had Carolyn clicking, even though, like, she struggled a little bit last year when she first came, and she started finding her form. Bunny Shaw was just unstoppable. Like, that team was a well-oiled machine throughout the whole year, and they earned it. They earned that championship. So so Tom can spend the next few minutes gloating and basking in being a champion.
Yes.
So everybody knows the bit on the show. Like, I didn't call that man by his name, but Andre Yeglert's. Like, I gotta call him Andre Yeglert's.
Wait, who's that? I don't know who
not
that
just
is.
one, but 2. Andre Yeglert's. Yeah, he won 2. Like, I got him call him both. And I think you really, like, you hear about players playing under Gareth Taylor and how static things were, and like how much, like, okay, once this ball goes here, this player needs to make this run, this player needs.
Audio keeps cutting out.
The audio is hating on Tom's celebration right now. Like, this is actually upsetting. He's like, no. Oh man. Yes. We're gonna get through this. We're gonna power through this. We're gonna vamp. Listen.
I can't think of any negatives. Like, I'm trying to think.
No, but that's what I'm saying. There's
like,
no negatives for this team. Like, I guess the only negative is that they lost matches, right? Like,
No, I was gonna say, like, I mean, but even that one was to Chelsea, one was to Arsenal, and then the only like not even a fluke was Brighton because Brighton had a good run at the end.
yeah,
But
yeah.
maybe that like Villa draw in the middle somewhere, but that's bound to happen. Like you
Maybe
can't
not
have
finishing the season
perfect
as
season.
dominant, right? I think for having led the entire time in the league, maybe not. Maybe having that little brief 2-week window where they were worried and like watching Arsenal's results, having 20 games in hand, they were
Yeah.
like, "Oh shit."
But otherwise, no. Okay,
Yeah,
Tom.
otherwise it was a perfect season.
You hear the players that talked about being under Gareth Taylor and then being under Andre Eglers, and the amount of freedom that he gave them to like move and like interchange position and like making sure that responsibilities were covered. I think that that's what kind of like, I think everyone knew that City had a really good attack. And I think that that's one of the reasons why over the past 3 seasons, like everybody was like, okay, like it's time for either City or Arsenal to dethrone Chelsea, and like one of them has to do it. And then you go to the like 2 seasons ago when you lose the league on goal differential, and then you have everything that happened last season. So just kind of, I mean, it almost feels like Andre Eglers just came in there with some Santo Paulo and just kind of like cleansed the joy and the city training ground for everybody. And I think it's that freedom as well as like, this is the first season that Bunny has been with City that she was healthy and available for all of those matches. And I think that so Deepti, you said that Arsenal scored 9 fewer goals than City. Like that 9-goal difference is the same difference as the number of goals that Alicia Russo scored and Bunny Shaw scored. Basically,
There you go.
like that. Those are the 9 goals right there. So, just that, like they were always going. They're based off the player that they had. They could be fun to watch. Now, based off of the system that's in place, it looks like they are obviously like everything's fun to watch. And I think that one of the things that I definitely want to do in this is the ascension of Jake Rose. Like that first match against City, like it had to be her and Gracie Pryor. Like they did not play well. And then Gracie Pryor kind of kept her spot, but Jade Rose didn't. And then as the Subway match progressed, like Jade Rose was in a form that like, no, I'm way better than her. And like, you even heard it like in one of the interviews afterwards is like, I'm coming for your spot, basically. And she took it like from Gracie Pryor, which made me personally very happy. But I think that her emergence was huge. I don't think that we took it like, if Alex Greenwood is on Serena's plane to Brazil, it's because Serena knows that she's a set piece specialist. Like you think about all of those in swinging corners and set pieces, and even the goal that she scored in the FA final, like just that set piece delivery and how important it is. Like you can live with her lack of pace at left back if she's can give you that, like on in set pieces and be that kind of specialist. She was obviously good, but I don't think everything to me really dwarfs in comparison to Bunny. I think Charlie on the Shades of Blue podcast said at the beginning of the season, like, y'all, I'm worried. Like, this is the last season of Bunny's contract, and then he's done. Like, and you heard the news, excuse me, the news in March. They're like, okay, they're close to a deal. And then like Bunny's posting like Marvin's room on Instagram, like talking about loyalty and stuff. And then you're like, oh God. And then it wasn't just that, like, it was like the fact that you win the league and then it's Chelsea is like, is rumored to be signing Bunny. And you're like, it kind of like kicked the wind out of your sails because you're like, yay, we won the league, but Bunny's leaving. Like, does it really matter at this point? Because like that's the nice things about like winning a championship. Is like, and especially with a player in the form that Bunny was in, like you knew that she was going to kind of keep getting there. And then I think what's so, and I've said this before, I think that she could have the potential diasporic impact that like Titi Henry had for Arsenal, like Didier Drogba had for Chelsea. Like there will be black girls all over the world that want to that are become City fans because Bunny Shaw plays for Manchester City. And I think that for her to make that announcement at what was essentially a send-off party for Pep Guardiola, like further cemented her as part of the club, like part of the fabric of the club. Um, and I think that that was the most important thing. So then like when you walk into Wembley for the FA Cup final, there's a much more celebratory nature than there was when you're at Chigwell and she scores 2 goals and she don't celebrate. Like, I mean, if the rumors are to be believed, like they like before the team walked onto the stage, like she was uh, working with Teresa's people to get the deal done. So I think that just knowing that she resigned, knowing that she announced in the way that she did, like that, like was probably the pinnacle and the best positive of the season. I can't really see any negatives because like this was the expectation going in all along for the past 3 seasons, and to know that it's happened now, like it's a tremendous weight off of a City fan's shoulder.
Okay, so now that you have won, and now you know, and like won 2 trophies, what is the expectation for next season? Especially since Champions League is involved now.
I think the expectation for next season is to like look at Champions League and say, "Hey, we have to get to the semis." Like not necessarily like we don't necessarily have to win, we don't necessarily have to get to the final, but like the squad is deep enough. Like that's why you make a signing for Sam Coffey. That's why you make sure that a player like Mary Fowler is still in the fold. That's why you you have so much attacking depth. And now it's just like, okay, what we need supplementary depth along the back line to make sure that like, okay, so we have all of this attacking depth, we have this midfield depth. Let's make sure that we're strong across the back line as well, so that um when you have that back to back of playing Juve and then playing Aston Villa, that a player like Aman Benet knows that like, okay, you're going to play one of these 2 matches, like for Kirsten Kasparov. She's not going to play them both. Like you're going to play, either you're going to play at Juve, you're going to play here against Aston Villa. Like, so that kind of helps bring the squad have more buy-in. Like, hey, like we're all part of this season to make sure that it goes well. There's not just the one goal of focusing on the league season.
All right. Okay. Any thoughts, like final thoughts on the teams and wrap up of the season before we get to awards?
I feel like from the sounds of it, it's really interesting because it feels like of the top teams, Chelsea are really the only ones still with heavy expectations on their shoulders, which is crazy for a team that is still fresh off like 6 domestic league titles, right? So like, and like, Mark can correct me if I'm wrong, but it very much feel like with City getting their title, it feels like, okay, the post Gareth Taylor era is beginning. We have Bunny locked up. Like we're vibing for the next couple years. Like with Arsenal, we got rid of Jonas. We were able to sneak in that Champions League title, right? And like now we're like, okay, let's get the rebuild going. We're vibing for the next couple years. But it feels like Chelsea coming into next year are going to be that team that's like, here we go. Like we have to win Champions League. You know what I mean? Like it's not even semifinal or final. It's like we have to win. And you look at Real Madrid loading up. You look at, Barcelona slipping. So like that window is really closing for them. But you look at Leoness, loading up. Like that is going to be a tough prospect next year. So I think they have. It's really interesting that they are coming in with probably the highest expectations and the highest pressure in terms of needing to perform. But other than that, I'm excited to welcome Crystal Palace back to the league. I
Yeah.
think that's my big takeaway from this season is I can now return to supporting Crystal Palace as my second favorite, and hopefully they do not get immediately relegated again. So I'm excited for that, and I'm excited to see the new teams come in. Like it's going to be a fun season next year.
I feel like just based off what you're saying, and Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like Chelsea fans are like between the three top teams, the ones that are the least happy, even if they are winning and doing well, just because of that like Champions League holding over them. Like if that is not won the season, I won't say it's a fail. Like even if you win the title, like I think you had said earlier on, like you would prefer the title over a Champions League win. I don't know if that's true for all fans, but just like unless you have won that and are like getting to the final Champions League, you're like unhappy. Whereas, like Trev said, this year maybe we could just try to like vibe Arsenal. We're just getting to where as long as we're in top three, we're happy. Even top two is fine. But yeah, do you feel that? Do you feel it's like always stressful or like you're just like unhappy until the end?
I think specifically in this moment, it's a reflection of the managers, right? Like, because you look at how like Renee came into Arsenal, or even like to a degree, Jurglitz to City. It's like well, I'll use Jurglitz to City for example. It's kind of like okay, how do we feel about this guy? Well, what do we really expect? Like, we know he has a good record in other leagues, but we don't know if that'll translate and all that. Whereas Bonpasto, it's like, okay, she's coming from Lyon. She's, first woman to win Champions League as a player and a coach, right? And so it's like, for her, the expectation right away was, and then she's inheriting a team that won the league X amount of times in a row. And so it's like for her, there's no drop off. Like the expectation is that she wins, which she did, but then also do the thing that Chelsea haven't done yet. And so, like, to me, she is the most likely to not make it to next season of those managers, right? Because, like, it would take. I can't imagine City letting Jurgens go, and it would take something extraordinary to happen for Arsenal to let Renee go. So I think that's probably what a reflection of that is. Because yeah, like if we're not trying to win, it's kind of like what are we doing then? Like we can't say we're rebuilding. I mean, we do have to rebuild to a degree. But it's feel like Chelsea feels like reloading more than anything else.
That's fair. I think that's a good answer.
Um,
Alrighty. Oh,
we,
sorry, Tom. Go ahead.
well, we talked about outside investment, and I think that's that might be what keeps West Ham up next season. Like the fact that West Ham's, like we talked about their, like the men's side goes down, like the women's side like goes to the wayside, and we saw West Ham men go down this season, go down for this past season. So is that outside investment going to be enough of a lifeline to keep them up? I think that will be a cautionary tale for other clubs, like especially those clubs like a Brighton, clubs that whose men's side like might not be in the top six, that are closer to the middle of the table or bottom of the table. Like, how does that? Crystal Palace is also it would be a good example of this. Like, is it then worth it for those? Like, if West Ham is able to stay up this season for in the Women's Super League, is it worth it for a team like Crystal Palace to go out and seek outside investment outside of the club of Crystal Palace? Because again, another team that's completely in flux on the men's side.
True. That's a good point. It all comes down to investment at the end of the day, which is what we keep saying. Um, okay, we're gonna move on to something fun. We did last week last episode on part one of our recap. We talked about the WSL official awards. We decided to do our own the 12 awards because we agreed with some of them, but maybe not all of the awards that were official. We also asked some of our favorite and best minds in WOSO are friends SJ Butter, Diaspora, and friends of the pod. And so I think because we have several of them, I was thinking we could just go around and just like list them off. This is just based on, I just tallied up the votes and then said who the winner was, and then like 2 and 3 if there were other people who were nominated. Okay, so Mark, if you want to read the first 3, if you have the doc open.
Yes, I do. Okay, so we're doing starting with that attacker of the season.
Yes.
Okay, so attacker of the season was Bunny Shaw. That was a unanimous result. Midfielder of the season, Jess Park took it over Hasagawa. Defender of the season, we had a tie between Maya Letitia and Emily Fox. Kasparai and Jade Rose also received votes.
Yes. Okay, Tom, the next 3.
We are ranking Maya Letitia in the year of our Lord 2026.
I think the biggest surprise of that first 3 isn't that Emily Fox tied; it's that she tied with Maya Letitia. I think I was expecting her to tie with like Kasparaj or something. Like that is crazy.
I mean, there are some United fans who did vote, so I'll just leave it up to that.
Okay.
It's hard for some people to keep their biases aside.
Tom, do you want to read the next 3?
You got it. So for goalkeeper of the season, we had the winner of Ayaka Yamashita, followed by Daphne Van Opsloor and PTJ. Manager of the season, Runway, Andre Yeglerts. There's pretty much no debating that. And then young player of the season, we had Freya Godfrey as the winner, which I know that makes Trev really happy. And then had Toka Koga with the second of votes, and then Olivia Smith with the third amount of votes.
Yeah, here at young player, I was like, should it just go by age? Should it go by like how many seasons they're in the league? So Olivia Smith for me was on the cusp, but she is obviously young and very good and had a good season. So I can see why she's up there. But I'm happy for Godfrey. I think she's like thriving at London City. Okay, Treb, next 3.
Okay, so we have MVP again, Bunny Shaw with the winner. Not a surprise. Beta Olsen in second. We have most ex-dog, which is self-explanatory, but for those that don't know, it is the player with the most dog in them. And I don't think this is a surprise. The winner is Lauren James from Chelsea with Yui Hasagawa in second and Kasparaj in third. Wildest red card. Yeah. This is, I feel like I'm like reading it and I'm like, well, Alyssa Thompson has had her hair pulled twice this year. That's true. It is the Bellamau hair pull on Alyssa Thompson, second with Drew Spence, the high boot, and then Gemma Bonner's dog. So both on Rico, which is impressive. So basically Rico and Alyssa Thompson have had seasons where they have been kicked to shit and had their hair pulled. Welcome to England, I guess.
Yeah, right. I feel like, drawing 2 red cards like Riko Yuki in a single season is pretty impressive. Like, how often does that happen?
Yeah. And I guess that's true. The Katie McCabe on Alyssa Thompson wouldn't be there because that wasn't a red card. Controversial.
Right. And that was Champions League.
It was Champions League. Like, it wasn't even league,
true,
and it wasn't even called. So, but that brings me to the next one. So again, we're only doing league. So like the Katie McCabe one is not going to be on here, but most controversial ref decision. The second match between Arsenal and Chelsea, I think that whole match had a bunch of questionable calls.
How are you gonna just pick out the one that Arsenal benefited from to call that one the most? Like that whole match for both sides was the worst officiated match I think I've ever seen. It was.
Well, yeah, I highlighted specifically the phantom handball that was called on Stina Blackstenius. That would have been, I think, the winning goal in that game. And so that was outright. I forget who was reffing, but whoever put in Emily Heaslip still being employed as just the most controversial. Tom, that was him. Just Emily Heaslip as a whole. He slipped multiple times this season, I think. Okay, and then we have our best 11 and second best 11. Again, this was just tallied based on the number of votes that came in. So for our, and also I did this based on a 4-3-3. So that's what we're going to get. Goalkeeper was Ayaka Yamashita. The back line, we have the two center backs as Jade Rose and Toko Koga. And then fullbacks, Emily Fox and Kirsten Kasperai. Midfielders, Yui Hasagawa, Jess Park, and Erin Cuthbert. And then forwards, Bunny Shaw, Olivia Smith, and Alyssa Thompson. How do we feel about our best 11?
I feel like that's
a
solid.
strong ass team. I put that team against any team in Europe, honestly.
Amen. Okay, and then
sorry, just real quick. The one I would quibble with, I didn't think like Cuthbert had her best season. Like she was fine, but I think Olivia Holt from Tottenham could have received some love there.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Well, she is in second best 11, so I'll get to that. The second best goalkeeper, again, it was a tie between Van Domslar or PTJ. Both of that, like Van Domslar didn't play much of the season, and then PTJ obviously had that drop off. So at their peak, though, when they're both in their prime, I think both are phenomenal. Center backs, backups were Maya Letizier and Steph Catley, which is interesting that, again, we got Maya Letizier tied for best defender, but she's in second best 11. Fullbacks, Katie McCabe and Ellie Carpenter. Midfielders, Kim Little, Olivia Holt, and Viv Miedema. And then forwards, Alessia Russo, Lauren James, and Beta Olsen. Beta Olsen, I think, would have had a strong year if she didn't get injured early on. But she was up there with like scoring a lot. She like turned it around for Liverpool.
And if Gareth Taylor wasn't her manager,
that's the other part. Yeah, Liverpool got to fix that.
Also, just want to share some love for Kirsty Hansen, who was third in goals.
Yes,
with 12.
Absolutely. I think she also won the best goal of the season in the other awards. So that was great. Okay. We had our prediction game. We didn't do it for the last couple weeks because we just weren't able to record and do that. But I took the final results from the last time that we did predict. And drum roll, please. I'll start in fourth. It was very close. Okay, Tom, you came up in fourth place with 52 points. Mark, third with 53. And then there was a tie at the top with me and Treb at 54 points.
Listen, the comeback. I started the season so bad too. I spotted you guys like 9 points. And I told you, do not. I was like, this is a long season. There's time. I feel like I would have won outright had we been recording last week. But that's okay. I'll take the draw. I'll take the draw at the top. It's okay. It's okay.
We will have to come up with something for Tom now as the loser. Unfortunately, you're going to have to do something by the time next season starts. We'll figure out what it is.
I have a few ideas, but we don't have to get.
I was going to say we have a hive mind of very intelligent soccer folks. We will also get their opinions on. So
yes,
a punishment will, and they are very creative when it comes to things like punishment. So we will have something.
Okay. We are unfortunately running out of time because there's a World Cup match coming up and a watch along with the Shades of Blue guys. So I'm going to leave transfer stuff for next episode. But just to tease, there have been some confirmed signings. Katie McCabe leaving Arsenal, going to Chelsea. Sam Kerr obviously leaving Chelsea, going to Gotham. Beth Mead and Neve Charles hasn't been officially announced, but Neve Charles.
Young Thatch has been announced by City.
Yes, Beth Mead has, but Neve Charles.
Mead is announced. Neve is not.
Yes. And then Mary Earps just announced her signing to London City. She did that on the recap show with Tobin and Kristen Press. And then, yeah, I knew that's a little teaser. We'll get to that next time. Anything else? Last couple thoughts. We have a couple more minutes. It was another good season.
It was a great season. I mean, objectively a great season for me personally, obviously. But like, I think that we talk about like all of these like top teams in Europe, like, and then you look at like the leagues that they have to go through, and you're like Liga F, Serie A Femenil,
Yeah.
The French league, like Eredivisie Femenil, like this is obviously like the most competitive European league of the top six, and I think that bore out this season, like especially like amongst the top four finishers of the season. But even though like you look at this, like City was the first team to win the league and lose 3 matches in the league, like ever. Like think about that. Like that just and like they like yes they lost on the road to Chelsea, yes they lost on the road to Arsenal, but like their other loss was on the road to Brighton. So like there are those, and like we've talked about Aston Villa being kind of a bogey team for Arsenal. Mark went in, like he's talked about how crazy that Everton match drove him. Like you see these other teams, like they're starting to get those results off of those bigger clubs, and I think that this is going into next season. More of that chaos is going to come, especially with when you have the new introduction of more teams into the league.
Exactly. I was going to say next season we have 14 teams. We are introducing 3 new teams that were promoted. Leicester City lost that playoff, so they were relegated. But we're going to be welcoming Birmingham City, Crystal Palace is coming back, and Charlton Athletic. So that would be exciting. But I will sign off now, and I want you guys to join in at the end because unfortunately, this will be the final time we're signing off with this sign off. But thank you guys for listening. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast. Hit that follow button to stay up to date when new episodes drop. Leave a rating and review if you can. We'd love to hear your feedback. Just interact with us, give us ideas. All of us together, guys. There are 12
teams.
6
6 games.
4 hosts.
4 hosts.
You're
This is
listening
your
to
12.
the 12. See you next time. Thank you. That echo was so great.